This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, and tonight we have a great show. We're putting the spotlight on children's authors. As our regulars know, this is the place to find out how to get a book published and to hear the trials and tribulations some people go through to make their dreams come true. Tonight, we're celebrating children's authors, and we begin with K.J. Ray, who wrote Ariana and Rowena. Who are these guys?
Magical beings that are dead and trying to guide Corey Davenport to them.
They're dead? Who's Corey Davenport?
Corey Davenport is a young lady who just graduated from college, and she is looking to discover her family history. When she does get down there to meet Ariana and Rowena, a world of imagination and magic, and she gets to learn more about her family history and who she is. And then she tries to kind of make the world better. Does
this story have anything to do with you?
No, this story is just from imagination. I was playing the game of life with my daughter and a family friend. He was spending the night with us because he was heading into the Marines for basic. And the game of life, my card said, you're going to write a book, make $100,000. I kind of laughed about that, and I said, do you guys think that I could write a book? And they kind of challenged me. Go ahead and do it. I dare you. So that's how it started. It took me a couple months to write the book.
You never wrote a book before, and because of this game, you said, I'm going to just do this.
Yeah, I took the challenge, and I think I did a good job at it.
Now you got to make $100,000, right?
I'm going to try.
All right. Well, what are you doing to complete that challenge? Are you doing book signings? Are you going to malls? Are you standing on the corner with your book and waving it?
Just about. I'm trying to get my book out there. I have, done different things on Facebook. I'm going to be putting it in the local paper, things like that.
That's a good thing. I talked to somebody else earlier today who said that, he called the local paper and he said, I'm doing a book signing at the library and the paper's going to send a reporter down there. So that's a really good way. That's a really good way to market it. And I guess you're telling your friends, your family all about it.
Oh, yes. I think sometimes they're more excited than I am.
What makes it stand out from all the other books out there that are like it? I
think that Corey is an interesting being. Of course, all the others are interesting too. I'm thinking that, mine, Corey is more interesting, the story is more interesting because there's different things that happen than the norm. There's a whole different world in Corey's new experience. That's what I'll call it, a new experience.
Okay, and the message is she's going to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons and inspiration in children's books, and in the case of our next author, Joan Cox, Toby's Tall Pumpkin got so much attention in her town that she had no choice but to write it down. How you doing, Joan?
Never done this before, but I'll do my best.
We're just going to talk, us girls. Nothing to be nervous about,
Good.
Joan.
Good, I like that.
Toby's Tall Pumpkin.
Yes. It comes from my background, having been raised on a fruit farm. I have two younger brothers that my father would turn over an acre of ground, and they would choose whatever they wanted to grow, and then they could keep the money they made. And they almost always did pumpkins. So I really didn't help with the harvesting of the pumpkins because generally my father was such a great farmer that his pumpkins were always put in the state fair, and most of them were large enough that it would take my brothers to lift one, and I couldn't lift a pumpkin. And I have had stories, children's stories, buzzing around in my head since I first started tending children in my neighborhood when I was 13, 14 years old. And Toby's Tall Pumpkin evolved from being planted to being a very tall pumpkin that Toby needed help to get it to the fair to win a prize. I go into grade schools and I recite my stories. And Toby's Tall Pumpkin, I do it in the fall around state fair time. And the children they just go crazy. And I would recite what I had in my head because I wanted to see the faces of the children as I produced the story, as I told the story. And often my husband will come with me and he will either turn the pages of the book or they put it on an overhead in the classroom so the children can see the illustrations. but I think I'm pretty good at talking about it. My biggest problem is I had so many people wanting copies of Toby's Tall Pumpkin. And I'm looking at them like, well, it's in my head, but I didn't write it down. So I wrote it down.
So you would tell these stories in classrooms?
Yes.
And that's amazing. So you had these stories in your head all of this time, and now you can give a copy to everybody who wants one.
That's right. That's right.
You should make them buy a copy, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
What's the moral of the story?
Well, the moral of the story is, as I started to say, Toby's Tall Pumpkin evolved. When I first started telling it, and it was in my head, there was not such a thing as a skateboard or a longboard. And so in order to get the pumpkin to the fair, and it was too big and too heavy for Toby and his friends to carry, they attached several wagons and put the pumpkin on the wagons and pulled the wagons to the fair. Well, this story tells about how Toby tells all of his friends to run home and get their skateboards and longboards. And they came back very fast. And they hammered and glued all the skateboards in place, and they all hopped on top and started to race. And it is a darling story. And they think they're going to win for the blue ribbon, but they don't. And the judge is so happy with Toby's Tall Pumpkin that he decides to give them a prize by allowing them to charge a quarter and give all the kids at the fair a ride on the Tall Pumpkin.
That is a really nice story. Really nice.
I have people that listen, and Page Publishing is doing my second story. And my third one I'm about ready to send to them. I just have these stories floating around in my head. I'm a great-grandmother. They've been in my head for years. And like I say, they evolve. It's interesting. I went to Hillfield Base, and, of course, most of the children, their parents are in the military. And I had 70 children between grade 1 and grade 4. And I always have questions at the end of the story. Let's talk about pumpkins. And the children's first questions were, how did you write this? How can we write a story? And so I said to them, all I can do is tell you what I do. That doesn't mean there's a certain rule of how you write a book. I just know that these stories have been part of me, and I decided to write them down. And the children I had 70 kids. I had them eating out of my hands. They wanted more and more.
Listen, when a story's great and it moves a child or an adult, it is what it is. You know, you've got a great gift there, and I wish you all the luck in the world. I think this is wonderful. It's like you've found a new path in your life, and I think it's great.
Well, it is. I'm retired, and my husband said, you've got to write these stories. We always have a big Halloween party for grandkids. We have a small condo, and we have 25 kids plus parents come in our condo. And the first thing the children say that when they walk in the door and they're all dressed up in their costumes, what time do the stories start? What time do the stories start? It's their number one thing, and it's so fun to sit down and tell stories and have them be so involved. You can tell by their faces. I don't have to keep my nose in a book.
The fact that these words are helping these kids create pictures in their own minds. You know, it's not on the internet. It's not a game. It's not...
Exactly.
You know, this is just good old-fashioned, telling a story and letting those pictures come to your mind. Nothing is better than that. And that's a great thing for our kids to have. So thank you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much.
Our next author, Norma Elizabeth, is all about lessons for kids, some of them hard ones. In her first book, it's called A Mouse in the House.
It's about 3 rodents living in this house and about the mischief that they get into and about saving the owner of the house.
They save the owner.
Yes, the owner got in some trouble with some thieves, and they tied the owner up. And one of the mice, the smallest, is Dumo, he decided that he didn't like the fact that the human was tied up, and he asked his friends to help him. The friends were in denial, said, why should they help a human in trouble when the humans don't like rats anyway? But the youngest one decided he didn't care whether they would help him or not. He decided he wanted to help the human. So he asked his friends to help, and they got together to save the owner, which was tied up.
Was the owner trying to exterminate them?
In the beginning, that's why they was angry with him. And he called some exterminators. But the exterminators got to his home, and they weren't exterminators, they were crooks. And that's when they decided to tie him up, take all his electronics and anything, money. He was there and in pain, and they tied his hands and they tied his legs. The mouse and the two rats lived in the house, and they wanted to know what was all the commotion going on in the house. And they lived in the attic. Then they decided to leave the attic to go downstairs in the kitchen to see what was going on and all the noise and all the yelling. And the smallest one, he said, I want to help him. I can't let nobody stay down like that. And the older one said, yeah, but he tried to get rid of us a little while ago, remember? And so that's when the story takes off and tells about each character, which was the little rodents and the human.
Does the human show his appreciation to them?
Yes, he does at the end. He, after the father had to leave for a few days to get better in the hospital, they all went to the basement. And the older rat said, no, let's take precaution and look around. The bigger one ran on the pile of trash, and he got caught on a rat trap. The older one died because he was pushing and pulling. You know, he had a heart attack. And the other one because of his amount of time to stand on a trap. But that's the basis of the story. And
so there's a lot of lessons in this.
Yes, it is. They don't like the sadness, but it's only reality because whether it's a human being or animal or, like I have in here, rodents, you know, it's a very sad time. Just to show things, even when you're feeling good and having a good time, bad things do happen. I have been writing different books. Just, you know how you just write stuff and put it down and continue to write. But this one was the shortest one. So I say, let me give this a try and go ahead and try to publish. Because if I don't publish, they'll never get published. You know how you keep saying, it's not worth it. And then I had to tell myself, well, you don't know unless you try. So the thing was, you know, after I finished that book, I just say, well, since I have several others, let me do this one first and see how it'll take off.
So what do you think?
I'm hoping so. I feel good about it, you know, because once you write the book, you have to read it over and over and over again and to see. And then I have thought about it and talked about it, you know, with family and friends. They said, why not do it? Because we read other things from you in the past, and they liked it. So I said, well, I might as well give this a shot.
You know what, Norma? It's the old, you don't know if you don't try. So at least now you know you tried, right? Our next author, Carmen Oliva, has become addicted to writing after she penned The Adventures of Pugsley the Pug and Trucker Joe. What's the story, Carmen?
Well, let's say they'll be traveling the United States, and they'll be meeting new people and getting the job done and making new friends and just having adventures together.
So what kind of adventures do they have?
Well, they'll be traveling from state to state, getting into little complications here and there. Pugsley will be saving people, just coming to the rescue, and so will Trucker Joe.
And where did this come from?
Well, actually, my husband, which is actually the real Trucker Joe, he's a professional truck driver. And every now and then he'll take the dog with him and he'll tell me what kind of things they get into and what they did on that day. And I said, well, what a great idea. Why not make a child's book out of it? Because the kids are always asking him, what did you do today? Where did you go? So that's what basically gave me the idea.
So he comes home and tells you stories, you write them down.
Yes, I write them down. I add my own imagination to them.
It's really his book then.
Yeah, it's his little adventures here and there.
You have a little adventure you can share with me?
The first book is basically how him and Pugsley the Pug met. Trucker Joe likes traveling the United States, and he felt kind of lonely and decided to adopt a pet. And that's where we got Pugsley the Pug.
Where did he find Pugsley?
At a local pet shop.
Oh, okay. It's not like he found him on the road or anything.
Yeah, no, not on the road, at a local pet shop.
Have you tried the book out? Do kids like it?
Oh, yes. In fact, I just came from a chat session with my 10-year-old son in his 4th grade class, and the class just asked me a whole bunch of questions, and they love the book. They can't wait for book number 2 to come out.
So are they buying it?
Yes, they are.
So you're going into classrooms. Is that how you're getting the word out about your book?
Well, I gave the teacher one of the books, and she thought it'd be a good idea. She read it to the class, and the children just wanted me to come in. They had questions on how I got the book done, why did I become an author. They had very interesting and wonderful questions.
So you're inspiring them too.
Yes, I am, and I spoke to a few future writers.
Yeah, I bet you did. Because 4th grade,
Yes.
you know, that's a that's a good age. They can get it.
Yeah, they certainly can.
All right. Well, are you doing anything else? Are you calling your local paper? How are you getting the book out there?
Actually, Page Publishing has been very good. They have the book at I've seen it on Barnes and Nobles and a few other places like Amazon.com. I have some friends that are already purchasing off of there, and they've been handling everything pretty good.
Okay, so you're not doing any book signings, or you're just
not as of yet, but I plan to.
Yeah, do it. That would be great.
Yes, I definitely plan to.
Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Bronx, New York.
Is that where you live now?
Yes, I live in Bronx, New York, but on the weekends I have a little getaway place over at Wappingers.
Oh,
and that's not Wappingers Falls, not too far from Poughkeepsie. And that's where my husband and I spend most of our weekends to get away from everything.
Okay, so you're like a local author, and I'm sure people want to know. They want to know about you.
Yes.
Great. Well, good luck.
Thank you so much.
How'd you end up with Paige?
Actually, I saw it on an email I was sent. I kind of take it as a sign, so I called somebody up, and I spoke about what I wanted to do, that I wanted to write a series of children's books. And he told me, well, send it in and see what we can do. And about a week later, I got a phone call saying, we like it. We're going to publish it. And I was very excited.
Had you ever written before?
I've written, but I never thought I was any good at it.
Well, I guess this'll show you, huh?
Yes, it will. I never thought I'd be any good at it.
Well, good luck.
No, thank you so much.
And enjoy the ride.
Yes, it's exhilarating.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yes, it's lots of fun. I mean, I can't put my pencil down now. It's become very addictive. Once you get published, you can't stop.
All right. Jeez, I'm getting so wrapped up here, I almost forgot. It's time to take a break. We'll have more children's authors coming right up. One of them takes us to Alaska for fish camp. Stay with us.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Thanks so much for being with me. Tonight, we're celebrating children's authors, and we have one right in our own backyard. Michael Donovan is from Queens. Michael, why don't you tell us the name of your book?
The name of the book is The Scholarly Hijinks of Tiger and Lily, School Days.
Who's Tiger and Lily?
Tiger and Lily are two class pet goldfish that are class pets for a 4th grade middle school.
And what happens to them?
They're not your average classroom pets, and they're involved in the antics of the classroom. They're able to magically communicate with the 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Hook.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, what do they tell her?
One of them is a scholarly type, Lily. She likes to learn what's going on in the classroom. They get involved in the lessons, and they're able to tell her about what's happening in the classroom outside of what she sees during the night, and that leads to the eventual problem in the story.
Do they tell on the students?
No, they don't tell on the students, no. They tease her about the students. Tiger is very hard to control. He's like another one of her students almost.
But the students don't communicate with these guys.
No, students don't. No one else does except Mrs. Hook.
So they must help her find out something important, right?
Yes, they do.
Can you give me a hint?
One night while they're left alone, they don't like to be left alone after they're able to communicate with this woman, and they like the hustle and bustle of the classroom. The night is very lonely, and they hear a noise in the closet, and Mrs. Hook doesn't believe that, in the school supply closet.
Okay. Is it a monster?
You'll have to read to find out.
Okay. All right.
Could be.
Could be. It's a cliffhanger. So there must be an important lesson in this book.
Yes, I would say there's a lesson in the book.
So is it based on an experience you had or a fantasy you had?
It's probably based on my experience as a classroom teacher, dealing with the different personalities in the classroom.
What grade?
Taught grades 6 to 8 for over 20 years.
That's a crazy age, man. They're becoming man cubs.
I know. It is a very difficult age. I'm still in the same school. I'm now the assistant principal.
Are you going to make it required reading?
I wish we could. I wrote it with a co-author, too. She and we're colleagues together, and she had the basis of the idea, and then we drew on our personal experiences, and we knew that we had a story to tell. Nice.
Well, everybody must know about it then, right?
We're very humbled by the whole process, so we're just now beginning to tell people. You know what? We're not pretentious. Here's our book.
Yeah, but you got to get it out there. You got to get people to read it.
Oh, now we are. Yes, now we are. Yes.
What are you doing?
People have been putting it on Facebook. Former teachers have been sending congratulations. One of the parents from the Parents Association just saw it and said congratulations, and she's going to purchase it and tell people.
Do a little book signing at your school.
If the principal agrees, we will. I'm available for signings.
Alrighty then. Finally, let's head up to Alaska for Fish Camp with Dorothy Joseph.
Fish Camp is about growing up in an Alaska village on the lower Yukon River. It's a village and then fish camp. We had our fish camp, which was about 18 miles below the village of Holy Cross. And that's where we would spend our summers doing our fishing and subsistence lifestyle living.
That must have been beautiful.
It was great. You haven't lived a full life unless you spent at least one summer in fish camp. We had fish nets for king salmon, a fish wheel for dogfish. They call them chums, but we had called them dogfish because in those days, in the early 1900s, we had 10 to 8 or so dogs, and in the summer months we would make sure we got enough fish to last them most of the winter. It's a lot of work. When the fish runs were good, the box next to the fish wheel, that box would be full with fish, and guess who had to cut it? My parents had 15 kids. I'm number 4, and the first 7 were girls, so my parents had many fish cutters, so we would be cutting fish all day, all morning, because fish from maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock to 9 or 9:30. And after we cut this fish and get it in shape, then we would have to hang it on the racks outside to dry. And when they're half dry, then we put it in a closed-in building called a smokehouse. And the smokehouse, our smokehouse, had 3 racks. We would climb up to the top and hang the fish. And when all that whole place was full, then we'd go down to the next rack. But we also had to get wood for our smokehouse, so we would go by boat downriver, upriver, and stop where there was driftwood and load the boat up. And we did laundry. We did laundry by hand, but there was play too. Because we had a big family, we were able to have little teams to have baseball, or we played Red Rover.
Did you eat a lot of fish?
Yes, at that time that was all we had to eat during the summer months. When we get to fish camp, we wouldn't have any food to eat, so we had fish. Otherwise it was Spam and things like that from the store that we would be eating.
Did you sell this fish?
Well, we kept the fish, but a few, like some people went to work in cannery or riverboat, so they wouldn't have fish for their family. So my dad would sell some to the storekeeper, who would sell it to the people who didn't have fish. And with that, just a little money, like I remember they made maybe $100, and they would order school clothes for us. You know, it wasn't a lot of money, but yeah, they would sell a little bit to the storekeeper for other people who didn't have money. And also we needed shoes for the winter, and so that's how they would get it.
That is so interesting. So where do you live now?
I live in Anchorage, and I was just telling people that this is my 51st year in Anchorage. I left Holy Cross in 1963 at the age of 20 to seek my fortune.
Yeah, I take it you would talk about these experiences, and finally somebody told you, why don't you write it down?
Well, no. What happened was that I used to read romance novels like crazy. And then after I read these books, I was thinking, you know, if these people can write this, why can't I? Why can't I write? And I played with that thought a while, and I talked with my family, and they were encouraging, yeah, Mom, you should. And then there was a lady, an elder from the Bethel area, who wrote a book. And I read her book, and it was inspired me because she wrote it about her life in that area. And then it came to me, say, why not write about your village life, fish camp, everything like that? And so I started writing. Pretty soon the thought came to me, call it Fish Camp. It took me 4 years to write it. And I would come to this mental block. You know, there's a big block, it stops you. Yeah, I didn't know what else to do, so I would just turn off my computer and forget it. I wanted to give up, but my family encouraged me, especially my one son. He was real adamant about it, so he would give me about 2 or 3 weeks, and then he would go turn on the computer and say, Mom, it's time for you to start writing again. After I wrote the book, I was self-published. Then I printed it, and I went through it. I edited it myself 4 times.
Oh.
And then when I was satisfied, then I made index, I numbered the pages, did the index, and then I looked for places to put pictures. And I numbered the pictures, got everything in place, and then found a person who printed it for me. With Paige, I went to the grocery store, and I looked through these books, and I wrote down different publishers in the book. Then I came home, gave it to my husband, so he went on the computer and started writing out the emails or whatever, you know, their websites. And then we got a response from Paige, and we contacted him. I sent him my book. I received a call maybe less than a week after I mailed it saying, yes, they were interested. So we started working together from then.
Yeah, you must feel so accomplished.
Well, I do, yes. I do feel accomplished, and my kids are really great about this. They love it. And my grandson yesterday told me he was proud of me, so that was good. He's 13. So, you know, you don't hear too many things like that from 13 years old.
That's better than a paycheck.
And before, I want to share a good feedback that meant so much to me. There were 2 of them. They were from elders in my village area. Elder man, he must have been in his 80s, and I was at the culture center here in Anchorage doing crafts and demonstrating my baskets and selling my book. And here comes this old gentleman with his cane, and he came to me, and he gave me his hand to shake hands, and he said, I want to thank you. And I thought, what does he thank you for me? I haven't seen him for so long, you know. And he said, for writing the story. And I thought, oh, wow. This was a blessing from an elder for writing the story. He loved that book. The other one was this lady from another village near my village told me, oh, she said her husband goes to bed every night with that book on his chest. He reads it. And they love it because it brings back to them when they were young and growing up and all the things that we did. So that was the reward. That was such a reward. I loved it when this old gentleman told me that. I thought, this is it. Lots of people tell me things, but this is what counted the most, was an elder.
Dorothy, that is one amazing story. Thank you so much. I guess we can go up to Alaska and find you at the outdoor market selling your book, right? What a great trip that would be. And what a great show, spotlighting our children's authors. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Next week, tune in for the Mets game at this same time, but the Page Publishing Book Club shall return the following week right here on 710 WOR. I'm Alice Stock.